You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com, and Henry the FLOWMASTER Schwartz from CBOE. The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. When it comes to trading volatility, trust CBOE, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. CBOE's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Time for episode 2 of the bi-weekly options extravaganza known around the globe as the Option Block, what the cool kids call the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, ever-scintillating Options Insider Radio Network. A lot of great content coming your way this week. Hope you've been enjoying binging it all week, driving up my bandwidth bills. For all you pro folks, you had quite the extravaganza this week. Double live boot camps. You had double OPRs, including a live huddle with Brian and myself. That was on Tuesday. Boot camp double shows on Wednesday. Of course, we had a great pro Q&A this week as well. All that stuff already hitting the pro, I should say, as well as, of course, options oddities coming up tomorrow. Everything else we do throughout the week live. And I just looked the other day. We have hundreds of hours of shows already up there on that pro podcast feed. So if you go up there to theoptionsinsider.com/pro now and check it out, you will have literally days worth of exclusive content. You can just binge it nonstop for 5 days, I think it is. And maybe you can exhaust all the content that is there. A lot waiting for you. Of course, more to come all the time. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. As we go around the horn here, see who's joining us on the old program. First, let's go out to the dark, the stormy, the tempestuous shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the old OB, sir.
It feels good to be back. I'm starting to feel somewhat normal after my week-long plague, but feeling a little better, I have to say. It's getting a little better.
That's all we can ask for. Improving a little bit every day. It's all you can ask for at the end of the day. Speaking of improving, let's hope Uncle Mike's technology improves over there. Look, he's going to be joining us a little bit fashionably late from the mecca of options that is St. Charles, but he should be joining us in a little bit here. And of course, it's Thursday. That means we are joined once again in the CBOE hot seat by the FLOWMASTER himself, a.k.a. Mr. Henry Schwartz, the Vice President and Global Head of Engagement, Data, and Access Solutions over there at CBOE Global Markets. Mr. FLOWMASTER, welcome back to the show to you as well.
Thank you, Mark. I'm always happy to chat option stuff with you. And, Andrew, and our listeners, because there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. So let's get to it. A little bit of the old trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there, what is lighting up our screens today, listeners. And, stop me if you've heard this one before, listeners, but the market gets spooked by some inflation-related data before the bell there early in the session, and everything sells off, and then they try to rally it throughout the rest of the day. If you've heard that movie before, that's kind of what we're living out right now. We've seen this multiple times on the week, big sell-offs earlier in the week on a lot of, shall we say, more dire economic news, and yet they managed to turn them green or slightly red most of the time. They are trying to do that yet again today. When we came in this morning, the S&P was back below 4,100. Looks like I got down to about 4096 or so in the early blush before they started rallying this thing. And even though we are still down across the board right now, down about 0.4% in the S&P, similar percent there in the Dow, NASDAQ off about 0.5%. We have, of course, rallied roughly 30-odd handles from that low. About 4130 is where the S&P is hanging out when we kicked off the show here. So still red on the day, but obviously we have bounced off the bottom. So this market has proven to be resilient to all these myriad shocks that keep hitting the system. Will it remain resilient to this one? Will we turn around and sell off again back below 4,100? I guess we have to wait and see, listeners. But another intriguing day in front of us. For all these sell-offs we've seen over the past week and then subsequent rallies, you would never know it by looking at the vol numbers because they're all pretty much coming in yet again. We have VIX coming into showtime. Hit an 1860 right when we kicked off the show. That's down about exactly 2 points from our show on Monday. So no longer are we dallying north of the 20 handle in VIX land, sir. And then VVIX, the vol of vol itself, hanging out at about an 88. That's also coming in. That's down about 6 points from where it was on Monday's show. Remember, we were hanging out in the mid to low 90s recently in VVIX. So we'll see if we can get back there again. VXX, the once broken, now I suppose, quote unquote, fixed vol product out there, 1130, down almost 0.5 point, about 0.45 from where it was on Monday's show. UVXY continuing to move towards zero, down about 1/3 point, hitting 490. So it's still vacillating around this stupid 5 handle. They really need to reverse split this thing at this point. It's getting kind of ridiculous. SVIX, 1780, ticking up. That's our inverse friend, ticking up about 0.7 point since Monday. UVIX, 1790. Looks like it's up 1 from where it was on Monday's show. And VolQ, a.k.a. the at-the-money vol of the NASDAQ 100 at 22.5, down 3.5 points from where it was on Monday's show. All right, a lot to unpack. Let's go around the horn the opposite of the way we started. Let's go out to the CBOE hot seat first. Mr. FLOWMASTER, sir, as you mentioned, a lot going on out there. What is lighting up your tape today?
Well, I'll tell you, you're right. Kind of, the market's just kind of traded sideways. We pulled back a little bit, but there doesn't seem to be any fear. A couple exciting things for me. I just updated some of my state of the industry slides, and the current pace of option volume means we could see 12 billion contracts this year.
All right. We got to cut that. We got to print that.
What?
That's gonna have to be recycled throughout the entirety of the year. FLOWMASTER, headline of the show right now. Producers, put that out as a tweet for the show right now. The FLOWMASTER says definitely, without a doubt, 12 billion contracts this year. That's big, sir.
It is big. I actually think I probably called the 10 billion number too pretty early last year. So, it's a really nice mix, like single stock option volume, which really kind of nosedived in 2022 off of those crazy numbers we saw in 2021, has bounced back this quarter. We're back up to about 25 million contracts a day in the single stock world. So, and yet ETF and index volume still continue basically at kind of record levels too. So it's really kind of a situation where, all cylinders are firing for the listed options market. And, I love to see it. I've had a couple great conversations with some retail brokerage firms out there that are kind of putting some work into innovation.
Dropped right in mid-sentence.
Right when he was getting everybody
right
excited.
when he was getting good, getting us excited. He says 12 billion contracts. And then he just drops completely. Well, you know what, Mr. I'll work on getting him back. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir. First off, what are your thoughts on that? 12 billion. That's nothing to sneeze at. And then B, what else is catching your eye out there, sir?
It just it continues to amaze me. Like my favorite thing is like a busy day when I started was 80,000 contracts on the P-Coast. 80,000 for the whole floor. So if you ever want to see how the industry has changed.
Oh, there we go.
Now I think you would be surprised if the Apple at the money option does not trade 80,000 contracts on the weekly on the at the money per day. I would be surprised.
There you go.
That's
entirety of the P-Coast and Apple. Henry, looks like we got you back really quickly. Anything else you want to add? You got us all excited with your 12 billion, and then you kind of just threw a smoke bomb and vanished.
Oh, and then, the rest of what I said was even more important, but now I forget what I was talking about. So, I think I was just saying, the volume increase is coming. Single stock is kind of coming back, right? We've had a decent bounce, and that kind of gets the single stock community jazzed up. And ETFs and indexes are still kind of seeing record levels of action. So it's an exciting time when you see kind of it's not just one spot is doing better. We see every area really active.
All right. Now you can regale us with your tales of delicious P-Coast burritos and whatever else is floating your boat out there today, sir.
Oh, the delicious P-Coast burritos.
How often did you have a burrito in one hand and a trading card in the other, sir?
I have to say it was kind of hard to eat the El Faro burrito with one hand. You needed two. So
the woes you guys had to deal with down there.
And early on, so when I first got down there, you couldn't eat on the floor. But by the time I had got back to the P-Coast in say 96, 97, all pretense of anything going on the floor was gone.
They didn't care.
So ties, like food, drinks, what everybody just gave, they just didn't care.
I was jealous of that. I wasn't jealous of showing up at 5 a.m, but I was jealous of the burritos and the beverages. If you brought a water bottle on the floor of the CBOE, they tackled you and shot you at the gate. So you had a much more loose environment.
Yes, it was definitely a little bit different. So, okay. Oh, hold on here. Did I place order? Oh my gosh. I just, again, trying to, okay. This order was not placed. Oh my word. Okay. Oh my gosh.
You need me to toss it to someone else while you're dealing with your order, sir?
No. It's all is well. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. So no, I'm good. But yeah, in the old days, so the volume story here is incredible. But as somebody famous once said, options love a bull market, right? So, and we're finally getting a bull market in a lot of those junky equities that people like. And, I think people are much happier making money buying calls than buying puts. So, having the market January up 10% probably didn't hurt everybody's feelings as far as going for, getting back on the option train. So a lot of stocks are down huge still. So I think there is some opportunity to be had in them there hills.
Yes, there is indeed. And I think we are now joined fashionably late, as always. Ever the prima donna in the room. He is, of course, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. Better late than never, sir. And what is catching your eye in not quite Uncle Mike Day yet, but I guess wait 10 minutes and that could change.
That's true. So, sorry I'm late. Had to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. So, no, just kidding.
No, you were really buying Solana. We know you.
That's right. You caught me. No, not really. So, yeah, with today, this is kind of like this market overall over the course of the last week. It's kind of been an exciting road to nowhere type of market. So I'm just looking at this, and we're about where we were a week ago. We had the big drop on February 9th. We came up a little bit. We've come down a little bit. And so it's really, if you just look at where we were, let's say February 8th to today, you're like, oh, nothing happened. What the heck were you doing out there? And but we've had such big moves in like the pre-market when we have the announcement of all of these inflation indicators, consumer price index, jobless claims, things like that. And then all of a sudden everything goes way down, then it comes back. So we're almost creating kind of this we talked about the 3,900 magnet a lot a few months ago. Now it's like we're almost starting to create what I would call a 4,100 magnet in the S&P. And so we just can't seem to get away from it over the course of the last week. So I'm seeing that. One thing that's not on a magnet, the magnet might be into the downside, would be bonds. We are getting a little bit of a sell-off in bonds with the rally that we had earlier in the year. It seems that the Fed is a little bit more hawkish than what the bond people would like. So we're getting some sellers there. We also have a little bit of a pullback in silver. We're getting some sellers there. So there's some things that are not behaving the way that some people would like them to be. The other big story that we have right now is just this Microsoft versus Google thing. Microsoft's down on the day-to-day, of course. But they really seem to somehow, it's almost like a pro wrestling feud in some ways, Microsoft versus Google. I think that maybe we're going to have, we're going to have the CEO of Microsoft go hit the CEO of Google with a folding chair or something and vice versa. Then things are going to change. But the question is, who's the referee in all of this? So we have that going on. And then Disney still continues to be on a tear, although they do seem to be leveling off a little bit. And a lot of the stocks that were really on a tear earlier in the year, they're starting to pull back a little bit. But if we get if Amazon will catch a second wind, if we get some of these stocks that start doing what they were doing in January, I think we're going to have a lot of bullishness in Demdare Hills, to quote someone from earlier on this show. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
Let's see where else we are at from an overall markets perspective. Let's fire up the old trade alert machine, see what kind of volume numbers it spits back at us today. Let's start in the major indices, listeners, as we are wont to do. Off to VIX land first. And once again, VIX not playing today, listeners. Ever since Powell and ilk did their thing a few weeks ago, VIX options have been on another level from a volume perspective. We were threatening to break 500,000 in the wrong direction right before that meeting. And now the ADV is up to 684,000. So you're up almost 200,000 contracts a day. Listen, that is nothing to sneeze at. And VIX threatening that again today already. 534,000 contracts on the tape as of a few minutes ago. So VIX not playing around yet again. All this whipsaw action we're seeing out there of late clearly accretes to a lot of VIX paper. SPY, no slouch as well. 5.71 million contracts on the tape right now. That ADV also looking robust at about 9.1. The S come into play today as well, 1.65 million. Will be interesting to see how much of that 12 billion contracts Henry is talking about is all this zero DTE madness out there. Speaking of which, let's go play our favorite game, listeners. Let's look and see how much of that 1.7 million, how much is going out today. And you know what? Actually, a little bit of a difference today. In the top 20 most actives, I've seen there's actually 3 in the top 20 that are not expiring today. The 4130s, the 4100 puts, and the 4100 calls. Those are all expiring tomorrow. So they're not long-term, but still, they're not expiring today. That's the first time in a while we've seen anything break the top 20 that is not going away today. So interesting. Maybe the game changing a little bit out there. Probably not. Listen, it's just one day. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. Small caps, IWM, 630,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV 831 looks like they're going to hit that today as well. The Qs 1.7 million, the ADV 3 million, so they're a little bit north of halfway there as well. Let's go out to the single names now. If you guys are messing around with Trade Alert, you can fire this up for yourselves. If you go into, just search for the most active out there on Trade Alert, and it will spit this back out at you today. Number 10 cost you 272,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets us to Coinbase. Coinbase has kind of been on a quiet rampage here to start the year. It's selling off today $1.65 or 2.3%, trading 67.70 right now. But on the year, it had more than doubled. It kicked off the year 33.60. It got up to 81.5 back on February 2nd. It has since sold off a bit now. It is selling off again today on a downgrade on what an analyst called the furious rally that had seen the stock gain 96% so far year to date. Of course, you go all the way back a year ago, a bit of a different story. Coinbase was trading over 200, about 208 back a year ago. So obviously, from that perspective, it is still down substantially, about 2/3 on the year. But over the last month and change, Coinbase not messing around, good for 272,000 contracts. Number 9, the return of kind of an old favorite. This one was a top 10 frequent offender for a long time. This was even, I think, pre-pandemic, the years before that. We used to talk a lot about Roku here on the show. Then it kind of fell off. The pandemic and all the meme stocks kind of kicked it to the curb, and Roku wasn't the volatile, active name that was popular with the retail out there the way it was in the past. But Roku making some headlines today. Their stock looking pretty good, up $10 or 15.75%, trading 73.5 right now after their earnings looking pretty good. They managed, I think, to contain some costs. Folks also streaming more content than expected. So Roku putting out some good numbers out there today. Good for 274,000 contracts. And the number 9 spot on our countdown today. Number 8, the artist formerly known as Facebook, now Meta, of course, 174.83, off about 2 1/3 or about 1.3% today. Obviously, this thing's still well north of where it was when we did that poll just probably a couple of months ago now. $88 was the low. So looking good for Meta. 311,000 contracts on the tape. Number 7, Uncle Mike was just talking about this Microsoft Google battle out there. Weirdly enough, I don't see Softy in our top 10 today. That's the first time in a while we haven't seen them in the top 10. But we do have Alphabet there, listeners, at number 7, 326,000 contracts, trading about 96.75, off about a quarter, so kind of unched on the day. Earlier this morning, it got down to 94.75, so it has bounced 2 handles off that low already. Of course, this ongoing AI war that Uncle Mike alluded to, who's going to win? Will it be the Bard? Will it be ChatGPT? Will it be some other player yet to be revealed? Either way, intriguing stuff. Number 6, going back to the heady days of 2021, listeners, it's AMC. 337,000 contracts on the tape. Pretty much unched today, trading about 517 right now. So not sure what's driving the paper out there, but folks liking themselves some AMC to the tune of 337,000 contracts. Number 5, again, that's why I like earnings season, listeners. We see a lot of shakeup in the top 10. It's not just always the usual suspects. Like number 5, Shopify, 385,000 contracts. Folks not liking what they're hearing from Shopify out there today. Pretty lackluster forecast for Q1, and that's hitting the stock off about 860 right now, or 16%, trading right around 44.75. Let's see, on the year, a year ago was trading almost 80, but actually got up to exactly 80. It ticked 80 exactly. That was, looks like in late February, early March. And then ever since then, it has not looked back. So still pretty much around 50% off from that level of a year ago. But looking at some numbers out there today. Number 4, yes, I said number 4 again. It's Amazon getting kicked down a little bit today. 427,000 contracts on the tape. Off about $1.50, trading 99.60 right now. You guys know the sordid tale of Amazon. I won't belabor it for you. Number 3, the chip zone. Once again, we're seeing some shakeups out there. Used to be somewhere between 4 and 6. It was pretty reliable. You had NVIDIA, you had AMD. These days, AMD nowhere to be found, and NVIDIA hanging out actually at number 3, 430,000 contracts. It's off 364 today, trading 224 even. Still, obviously, it's had a nice run from its 108 low it set not too long ago out there. Number 2, so it's back to the number 2 spot, back to the silver crown, listeners. It is Apple, 673,000 contracts on the tape today, trading 156, pretty much even, up about 70 cents or so on the day today. You know the deal with Apple as well, the low 124 and change, set back a few months ago, the high 179. So we're not that far away from the high, and we're not quite equidistant between the two, but looking kind of close. So that might be a fun poll coming up. Which one will be hit first in Apple? 52-week low or the 52-week high? That'd be a fun one. And then, of course, it's a day that ends in Y. So, you know, Tesla has to wear the crown yet again. 2.6 million contracts on the tape for Tesla. Tesla selling off today, 211 and change, off about 312. It's like they have some recalls out there. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the news is. Tesla is going to move. Tesla is going to put up options paper, and it is doing so again today. You know what else is driving paper, listeners? As I said before, it is earnings season. Just come in fast and furious this week. Palantir, Denny's on Monday. Coca-Cola, Mr. Buffett's favorite beverage on Tuesday, Marriott and Airbnb on Tuesday. Wednesday, we had Roblox, Krispy Kreme, so some donut vol, Roku, Cisco, and Marathon. Today, we have Crocs, Paramount, Hasbro, DraftKings, AMAT, and DoorDash. Tomorrow, John Deere. We have a bunch of new earnings move results and earnings season reports for you guys to check out hot off the presses. Just head on over there to theoptionsinsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. It will all be there for you here. Looks like this morning we have the earnings move results here for Roku. They popped off yesterday after the bell. Obviously, they went into their announcement 63.5. They were pricing in 14%. They delivered 16%. So actually, they were pricing in a fairly aggressive move. So they didn't outperform it perhaps as much as you might think. Cisco was after the bell yesterday as well. 48.5 is where they went into their announcement. They were pricing in 4.8%, and they delivered, get this, 5%, listeners. So pretty spot on, the market makers out there in Cisco. CROX, rubber shoe vol before the bell. How much did they have? Let's find out. 125 and 2/3 is where they were going into their announcement. They were pricing in 10.1%. They delivered 8.9%. So interesting. A little bit of underperformance on the rubber shoe front. That's just some of the many, many tickers we have just popping off in the earnings move results. In terms of the stuff upcoming, we have a ton of those as well. And the earnings report, we'll look at a couple here really quickly. We've got AMAT after the bell today. 119.5 is where they were trading when we ran these numbers. They were pricing in 4 3/4. In the past, they moved 398. So a fair amount of extra juice. And AMAT, we've been talking about them recently. Out of the blue, AMAT back on our radar after not talking about AMAT probably since I left CBOE. So it's been quite a while. But back on our radar again here, and AMAT popping off this week. DoorDash today after the bell as well. 68.20 is where they were trading when we ran this report. They were pricing in, get this, listeners, $7.39. In the past, they moved $5.16. So over $2 worth of extra juice out there in DoorDash. It's a very, let's say, fluid area of the economy right now, the door-to-door delivery stuff. So probably not surprising they're pricing in more juice, but that's a fair amount. DraftKings, this is the FlowMaster's favorite. He was talking about all those calls in DraftKings. They're popping off after the bell today as well. 17 3/4 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $2. In the past, they've moved $2. So nothing really to speak of out there on good old DraftKings, listeners. Let's see really quickly. We got John Deere popping off tomorrow. We don't talk about tractor vol a lot here on the show. Let's get out there and see what's going on. John Deere 410 even was where they were trading. They're pricing in 16 1/4. In the past, they moved 19 11. Wow. I might have thought it would be the other way around, pricing in a little bit more juice given all the crazy madness we're seeing out there from inflation, input prices, and everything else causing issues. But apparently, they are chopping that straddle down quite a bit out there in John Deere. So less tractor vol, listeners. That's intriguing. Of course, there's many more tickers. We don't have time. We could do a whole show just on all that. If you want to see that stuff, you know where to go, listeners, including while you're looking there, let's check in on the earnings season report. It is hanging out right now at 114%. Remember, I said it's going to come off a little bit. That's just inevitable. And that's what's happening right now. We actually have 1 week. Looks like week 4 now is averaging 99%. So we do have 1 week of slight, modest underperformance. Everything else is still green. And the average right now, 114%. Remember, long-term average since we started running these numbers is 92%. So that still is a dramatic outperformance. And in terms of calendars, we've got one calendar going up today in HSIC, and then RNG getting 2 calendars, and also a straddle in everyone's favorite Deere. So 4 new trades for you to check out there on the earnings trades report. You know to go. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. As we have to go right into our next segment, it is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we unleash the eye of Sauron, see what it finds, and fixes its fiery gaze upon out there. You too can utilize it if you're heading out over there to Trade Alert. Just hit them up. Ask. Ask for the eye of Sauron. See what they say. I think I know what they're going to say. I think we'll get to that in a little bit later in the show. But first, before I dive into what our eye of Sauron highlighted for us this week, Mr. FlowMaster, are there any interesting names or trades that are coming across your radar you want to talk about, sir?
Well, it's funny. I looked back at, DraftKings. We were talking about it right before the Super Bowl, right? and there were a whole bunch of Friday calls.
Yeah, they bought a bunch of Friday calls before the Super Bowl.
Right. I mean, the stock's a buck higher, but those calls didn't make anybody any money. So, maybe it was just an issue of timing, which seems kind of odd if the catalyst might have been the game. Nothing jumped to mind. I saw some funky flow in ChargePoint a few days ago, and that kind of paid off. So that stock up a couple bucks since there were some buyers around the 11.5 strike, I think. But no, nothing else jumping out at the moment.
We could do whole shows on. There's a couple of them: ChargePoint, Laser, a few others. There's a handful of funds. I don't know what they're up to, but they are just rolling for size out there every single day. 50,000 lots, 70,000 lots, 100,000 lot rolls and verticals going up every day in those names. And you could sometimes just go crazy saying, what are they doing? What are they rolling now? When did this start? It's a lot of Sturm und Drang. I'm not sure if it signifies a lot yet, but we had a rule there for a while on our Options Oddity show. Just no more ChargePoint because it's just a lot of nonsense paper. But once in a while, it comes up on our radar, but we have to almost filter it out because I don't know what they're up to out there. But there's a couple of funds, I think, playing tug of war. Same thing in Laser, and they're just throwing paper at each other left and right like it's going out of style. Instead, listeners, let's go out and see what our Eye of Sauron found for us this week. First, let's go out to a name. We're going to talk about this one in a little bit. This is Conagra Brands. I think it did pop up on oddities within the last month. But outside of that, it's been a while here on the old odd block, trading $35.82 right now. Ticker symbol CAG, listeners, CAG. On the year, it's kind of been a topsy-turvy year, but it mostly is kind of settling out to unched, which is interesting. A year ago, it was trading pretty much exactly where it is right now. I said it's $35.82 right now. It was $36 even a year ago. So net on the year, we did a whole lot of nothing. But in between then, they did a little bit of living. They sold off almost immediately after early March of last year. They got down to $30. Then they rallied it again back up to 36.5 in April. They did that dance multiple times throughout the year, listeners. So if you liked a nice range-bound name, Conagra had you covered for most of the year last year until they got to about November. Then in November, it sold off to $34. Then they took it up. They rallied it all the way up to its high for the year. This actually was technically this year. It kicked off the year at its high of $41.30 on January 6th. And then since then, it pretty much hasn't looked back. It's pretty much drifted right back down to where it is right now, which pretty much means it is literally unched on the year. But you did a little bit of living in between there if you were deft with some of your options trading out there. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found for today. It looks like it's someone playing in Feb yet again, hanging out in the weeklies. They don't want Feb to die. They want to keep the Feb party alive. In particular, it's the Feb 35 puts. So pretty much at the money puts right now, listeners, coming in and going up 5,126 times. Looks like paper lifting the offer for 25 cents on these bad boys. This is actually modest vol compared to what we've seen here on the show in the past. Only a 25 vol. Again, it's only a weekly option, so read into that vol number. A bit of a grain of salt. Let's see. Looks like they already had their earnings because the next announcement is not until April. And the stock was a little bit lower when they bought these, $35.69. So they are wearing it to begin with on the stock. Mr. Rock Lobster, what are your thoughts here on these Conagra weekly at the money puts, sir? Swinging for the fences in 1 week.
Well, didn't we see like on oddities like 2 weeks ago, somebody swung for the fences on some upside calls?
Yeah, I think you found those. That was your Eye of the Cyclops, I think. Yeah,
and they famously went out. There was kind of a big poof on those. I'm getting the same kind of sense here. I'm always curious because we have the FLOWMASTER now, so the game for the odd block has totally changed. It's so large, but this again looks like somebody's taking a shot. And this is another one you have to see if maybe they bought some stock against it, but it would be kind of a weird one to do that. And it looks like just a shot, and they're already, the odd block rule. When you buy the contract and you're down the first day is never a good sign. So I don't even think they're down before the gate.
They're in the hole to start. Never a good place to start, especially when you get your weekly, listeners. The clock is ticking. You ain't got much time to do your living, and so far, at least, they're not looking good. Conagra seems like the place where premium goes to die lately. Mr. FLOWMASTER, any thoughts on these weekly near-term downside puts, sir?
The it's an opening customer buyer. I'll tell you that. You can see that in if you type CAG Feb 24, it's 35 puts. There's because enough of it's printed on CBOE exchanges. This open close data, which we summarize, shows you that almost 1,400 were bought on the CBOE exchanges to open as a customer. So it's an interesting one. I'm looking at the stock chart. I mean, the stock hasn't done anything. It's kind of trended down. I don't know why they think something's going to happen in the next 12 days or so. But it's nice to kind of have the clarity of, yes, this is what's gone on. But I agree, it's not that big. I mean, we're talking about, whatever, 25 cents on 5,000. So 50 grand. It's decent. It's only $5,000, right? So somebody seems to be a little worried about something.
We shall see what's cooking out here in Conagra. Let's keep on rolling now, listeners, out to another name we've talked about before. It's been a little bit. This is FIVN Inc., ticker symbol FIVN, FIVN. Trading right now, 82 3/4, off about $1 today. On the year, a worse story, off nearly $50 or 36% on the year. Yeah, they're trading about 130 exactly a year ago, listeners. And that was kind of the best it got for them. They sold off pretty quickly in March down to $83. So right to where they are right now, back in March. Then they rallied it up to about 120. They hung out there for a while until August. They got back up to that level again in August, close to 120. Then they came for it again, listeners. They crushed it down to $46.61. That was back on November. So if you look at it from the November on frame of reference, it's looking pretty good. It's nearly doubled. But back to the beginning of the year, obviously a different beast, not looking too good, off over a third. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. It looks like somebody maybe thinking those heady old days are due to come back, because they weren't playing around. We saw, first off, a block of 2,710 of the March pars, the March 100s, going up for an even dollar. Pretty decently wide market, 60 at $1. Again, there's not the most liquid name, 5 North, so you kind of expect that stuff, but they weren't playing around. Then we found a second block first. Found a first block that went up before these after we did a little bit more digging. And that one, 2,290, went up for 90 cents. So they did widen it out. That makes a little bit more sense. So 60 at 90 was the initial market. They bought about 2,300 for 90 cents. They said, how are they now? Or in the electronic parlance, they came back in 15 seconds later, and they got the rest for $1. So pretty much a sweep across the board of about 5,000 of these March par calls. That is looks like about a 58 vol. If you are intrigued, listeners, the stock was a little bit lower, actually. So they got that nice little about 30-cent tick in the stock in their favor. It was trading about 82.50 when these went up. Worth noting, they do have earnings coming up. So this is an earnings play as well. Earnings coming up on the 22nd after the bell. So we'll know fairly soon whether these calls are looking good. Let's go the opposite of the way. Let's go out to the FLOWMASTER this time. Mr. FLOWMASTER, any thoughts on these fairly aggressive March pars here in your new favorite name, 5-9, sir?
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting one. I mean, I don't know if this is on the earnings report yet, but it straddles around $11 on an $80 stock. That'd be a pretty decent move. It does look like somebody's willing to put some capital to work on it too. So, I would kind of keep an eye on the upside. If this thing could be, over $101 in 2 weeks, that's an interesting one for sure.
It's got to move. It has been there before. It has been there. Last time it was over $100 was in August, 116. So it's got a ways to go, but it can't do it. Mr. Rock Lobster, someone swinging for some upside here. What do you say in your new favorite name, sir? 5 North.
There's nothing like buying calls that are outside of the expected move to really get your juices flowing in the morning. Don't you think?
That'll wake you up.
Like, all right, well, they're already pricing the straddles like a little over $10, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think folks are, the stock was 50, now it's 80, but it seems like that is a long road to slog for those calls to be worth anything after earnings. Let's see. And once the vol drops a little bit, see if they take the vol down, 10, 15 points, those things are probably worth about 60 cents. So yeah, they need something quite magical to make that work. I think there's a little bit of pixie dust, and there's some hopium being smoked by the bowlful. I think on this one, just if you're going to go the ConAgra puts or these calls, I think this is a little more hopium in the bowl on this one.
This is back to 2021, I should say, era paper out there. A little bit of optimism,
yes.
a little ray of sunshine, a little swinging for the old fences. The kind of paper that the odd block was created around, listeners. The fun swing for the fences upside paper here. Let's depart from that now, swinging for the upside fences. Let's go back, not that long. Let's go back to our last show, listeners. We were talking about some puts going up in TransUnion, ticker symbol TRU, trading 71.20 right now, off about 2/3 of a buck today. On the year, a different story. It was trading about 102 a year ago, got up to 105, and then ever since then kind of got clobbered. It got pretty much cut in half, got down to $50 pretty much exactly in November. Since then, obviously, it has rallied a bit back up to $70-odd, but still down about 30-odd% on the year. What we talked about on Monday's show, listeners, if you'll recall, was someone coming in and gobbling up a whole bunch of Feb weekly. So they're expiring this week. 65 puts. They paid, looks like 70 cents, 1,712 times, lifting the offer on those. That's an 82 vol. And this was immediately pre-earnings, by the way. That's another reason I wanted to come back to it. Earnings were coming out that day, or then actually the next day before the open. So Tuesday before the open. Then they came and did 1,613 more of these puts. They paid 80 cents the second time. We were joking about that market. It was no bid at 185 the second time. Usually you don't get a worse market second time. I think there probably was a bit of a hiccup on that one, but fun. Had a lot of fun with that one on the Monday show. And fast forward to today, the earnings are now out, listeners, in TransUnion. And as I said, the stock, when they put these puts up, was 69.75. It is 71.16. So you can do your basic math, listeners, and we are not below the 65 strike. So these puts, by the way, still open as we kicked off the show anyway. So they haven't come to close these out. Not that they can really get much for them right now, probably anyway. So it looks like these are going the way of the dodo. If you add them up, somewhere around $250,000 seems to be what they shelled out on these bad boys here. Mr. Flowmaster, looks like they took a roll of the dice on True's earnings this week. And on the options front, it didn't work out. Now, obviously, they probably own some stock too, so they're probably okay with the stock being up at the end of the day. But from a solely options perspective, didn't work out too well, sir.
No, it did not. I don't think there's probably no bid right now. But, you know, I was talking to a guy last night about trading styles, and, you know, he was really kind of hyping that kind of defined risk. You know, you buy an option, you know, in some cases, you're buying it for money that you are perfectly willing to lose in exchange for kind of that asymmetric payoff if it goes the way that you think it might. And so in this case, you know, that definitely, you know, the sellers won the day, but, you know, kind of the opportunity that the put buyer was looking for, you know, they certainly had it. And I think you're right. If they're, you know, in a lot of cases, this is a safer trade to do than just shorting the stock, right? Like, you know, shorting the stock, every once in a while there's a deal or something moves a stock 50%. And, you know, the reality is, like, if somebody said, hey, you know what, you know, I'm willing to put $30,000 to work, or a little bit less than that. And they did it and they lost it, or looks like it so far. And that's, you know, it's kind of like, if that was their goal, not to lose the money, but to take that risk, then, you know, they're probably not that upset.
Probably not that upset. At the end of the day, you want the stock to go up if you own it. That's what happened. They probably could have done without dropping somewhere around $250,000. But hey, what's that amongst these big customers out there? Mr. Rocklouse, anything to add before we roll on into the mail block, sir?
No, I think that's just a tale of sadness and woe. So we'll steal a line from Conan the Barbarian, and unless a little miracle happens, I don't think they're going to get what they want out of this one.
You know, it isn't a tale of sadness and woe, though. It's the mail block. So let's get to it.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments, your insights, your pearls of wisdom to share with our fellow listeners. This one falls into the latter category, listeners. This comes from Bill Z. Oh, this is our old friend BZ Tokyo. I haven't heard from him in a while. Welcome back there, BZ Tokyo. Good to hear from you. He says, hello there. I'm already laughing. Hello there. So I took up that offer to try out the Eye of Sauron. I thought you might get a few giggles out of the reply. And yes, I did. Thank you for sending this, Bill. He says, of course, it's all good now. And I sorted it out. Very robust system they have there. Smiley face. And Mr. Flowmaster, he included for our entertainment purposes, the response he got from your OSC specialist at the CBOE Global Markets desk when he asked them about, could he please have the Eye of Sauron? They wrote back to him and said, hi, Bill, can you please explain to me what you mean by the Eye of Sauron? So, A, that's awesome. I love that our listeners are kicking the tires over there. B, his response is priceless. That really makes my day. And then C, Henry, what are we doing? We got to educate our OSC specialists. They have to know the Eye of Sauron. It's going to be coming in for them.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that I'm part of a bigger organization here, and they thought it was some sort of a prank. And I was like, wait, I recognize that, and I forgot to give them a heads up. And now they know, and they are prepared for the influx of thousands of listeners asking to try out the system and also to take advantage of the settings that that we've already created for a power user such as yourself, Mark. So we're ready for more Eye of Sauron, and if we come up with another weird name for a shortcut, I will make sure I warn our support team before I talk about it on the air.
This one just cracked me up. This was great. I love it. I love it when they're like, what are you talking about? This guy's messing with us. Nope, it's real. Just keep it between us. Don't tell the Tolkien estate that we're throwing it out there. It is fun though. What better name for an ever searching, ever scanning eye than, of course, the Eye of Sauron. So thank you for that, Bill. That brought a smile to my face and the rest of our team. We were laughing all morning here about that one. Maybe not laughing about this one. Really quickly here, this one came in from Silesia. Silesia wants to know, do you guys see the SEC throwing the books at these shady dudes? Couldn't happen to better people. He sent a link to an article about the Department of Justice and the SEC charging, quote, social media influencers in an alleged $100 million pump and dump scheme that they go through to list all the people. They use Twitter and chat rooms on Discord to effectively do one of the oldest scams in the book, listeners, which is come out with some stock that they already owned ahead of time, and then promote themselves on these chat rooms like some sorts of guru that you should follow, and then B, get a bunch of lemmings to buy up this stock that they already own, and then they dump it, and they reap all the profits, and the lemmings are left holding the bag. In this case, they got it up to the tune of $100 million, so they weren't playing around. So I wish I could say who wrote this in. I wish I could say this surprises me, but we see this all the time. People have been hitting us up since day one. When we launched the network back in 2007 to do this exact thing, we always hang up the phone and delete the email on them, but they are out there. If you want to be unscrupulous, there are ways to go about it, and the folks are out there. So it is challenging sometimes and expensive to have integrity because these folks scammed $100 million, and now they're going the way of the dodo. So alas, sad times, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. Any thoughts on, you got all the bad stories. You got the advisor rip somebody off on the last show. Now you get this one. I don't know why they're all going to you, but what are your thoughts here on these social media influencers? They should just go to stcharleswealth.com and they'd be safe, sir, right?
Yeah, well, we don't have the, it's sad that happens. And, whenever there's money involved, whether there's human beings involved, there's going to be corruption in some way, shape, or form. And it is very sad that this exists. There's the old expression, I believe Warren Buffett had said it. It takes 20 years to build up a good reputation. It takes less than a minute to tarnish your reputation for life. And it's something to where what's really sad about that is that people like that give the rest of us that are trying to make an honest living in this business in one way, shape, or form, whether it's at an exchange, an education firm, or at the world headquarters of a global media conglomerate such as yourself, stuff like that gives us a bad name. And there's really no place for that. And, it's funny. I had a client once that got their money ripped off from the previous advisor. And so I just remember kind of just saying to them, they had said, so just tell us a little bit about yourself. And I was shocked that happened to them, because it was the first time that I'd ever met anyone that had happened to. And this guy had lost millions from money that was stolen from him. And so I'm just like, I was very stressed talking to him about it. I'm like, well, if I lose you money, I'm going to do it the good old honest American way. I'm going to blow it in the markets. And they laughed, and that actually made them feel comfortable at the time. And so it's just really sad that does exist, but we live in a fallen world. What are we going to do?
Indeed. Instead, let's move on to happier things. Let's move on to Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we do just that. We tell you what we're keeping an eye on for the rest of the week through the weekend until our next episode here on Monday. We'll start out there with the FLOWMASTER. Mr. FLOWMASTER, sir, what are you keeping an eye on, at least for you, until your next appearance on the show next week?
I'll tell you, I am digging even deeper, if it's possible, into zero-day options trading.
Not possible. Not possible at all, sir.
Well, I guess somebody has to be the expert on it, and I'm the guy. But there's so many interesting dynamics going on in these short-dated trades in general, and to trying to kind of really figure out what use cases are taking place. That's my focus, and I'm going to try to get something on LinkedIn that just puts some of the numbers out there, because I think people are getting a little confused in kind of what's available, how it's trading, some of the nuances. Right, you don't have open interest distributed by OCC on these because they expire usually the day that we're seeing most of the volume. So people start coming up with kind of conspiracy theories and misinformation, and I have the real information. So I'm going to try to educate the world a little bit and kind of show off what's going on.
We're getting a question a lot now from a lot of our listeners, like, how is this zero DTE, aside from the VIX and all the other questions we get? One of the other ones we get kind of alludes to what you were just talking about at the top of the show. Your 12 billion number you threw out there blew all of our minds. They want to know how much of that is really driven by the zero DTE, sir. So how much of your 12 billion forecast is because of this zero DTE explosion?
We're talking about 1.5 million contracts a day. So, times 252 days. So it's a decent chunk. But also at the same time, you have other exchanges and other products, right? SPX is now filled in 0 days as well. So that's actually the data that I'm digging into is, this volume. It's surprised a lot of people, and there's a lot of work going into trying to understand if this is a whole new use case, a whole new user base, or if this is existing users using the products for other reasons. I had a guy that I talked to last night mentioned that he trades zero DTEs because we were talking about it, and he actually uses S&P SPX 0-day puts instead of futures. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. And it goes back to that defined risk. He's like, look, if I sell some futures to hedge something, and the market happens to shoot up, surprisingly more than I'm expecting, then he's got, he's kind of on the hook for the entire, the unlimited upside of a future, versus a put that he knows what he's hedging for, what he's positioning for, and he's willing to say, look, I'm willing to put this much money on the line to reflect my view, but it's automatically capped. In a way, you hear on the 0-day trades a lot about stopping out and some of the issues with that, right? You know very well how stops sometimes work, and in options there's some messiness to it. And if you have paid $4 for an option, then you basically stopped out at $4 because you can't lose any more than your premium. So really trying to kind of illustrate how people are using these products is my urgent goal at the moment.
Your urgent goal over there. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. So, well, not about the volume, but what are you keeping an eye on until our next show on Monday? And since we're coming up against it, sir, as well, where can folks go if they want to learn more about all things Uncle Mike?
4100, anything the Fed may say, any type of economic anything to see what might move the market. If you want to learn more about Uncle Mike, feel free to go to stcharleswealth.com if you'd like to have a conversation about possibly working with an advisor who is not afraid of the option product. And also follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, and check out my YouTube channel as well.
There you go. Check the man out over there. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go to begin your journey. Of course, at Mike TOSAW on Twitter, also a good place for all his updates in between his appearances on this show. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until our next show on Monday? And then B, where can folks go if they want to engage with all that pit goodness?
Well, I think nobody quite noticed here that TOSAW has upped his magnet 5% from 3,900 to 4,100. So there's a bit of an uptick going on there. So anyway, yes, what I'd like to see is if we could actually start to rally a little bit under some sort of normal circumstance. So, if we could see a new low for VIX. So we keep thinking these sell-offs are going to go away. So, and if you want, go to optionpit.com, 888-TRADE-01. Say you heard the show and you get 10% off anything. And also tonight, Alicia is doing a webinar, so go to our website. And if you want to check out the profit window that is available over the next 40 days, it has a lot to do with all this inflation stuff. Come on over to Option Pit tonight and check out her webinar, 7 Eastern Time.
There you go. Check it out. Land of the Pit. And last but not least, listeners, you know where to go if you want your fun response from the CBOE Help Team on all things. Could be Eye of Sauron, could be the most actives, could be all the other fun stuff we talk about here on the show. Easy. CBOE.com is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. We got to get on out of here, but don't worry. Back again in about a half an hour. Our friends over there at CME going to be joining us on TWIFO to break down all the action in the equities and crypto and everything else they have lighting up over there out there this week. Should be a fun one. So pro folks, hang out there. We'll be back in pretty much a half an hour right now with that show live. Back again tomorrow. Volatility views, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then after that, for all you pro folks, back again with Options Oddities. And then we're back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. When it comes to trading volatility, trust CBOE, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. CBOE's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.